Now, coming to the ninth chapter, this is a very interesting chapter because the name of the chapter itself is very mysterious. It says Raja Vidya Raja Guhya Yoga. So Raja Vidya is kingly science. Raja Guhya is kingly secret. So there is something that is very important, which is going to be spoken about, which is why it's called Raja Guhya. But there is something by way of Raja Vidya, in the sense that this is the best of knowledge, or it is a knowledge that was used by the ancient leaders of the Hindu society to lead people both materially and spiritually. So, what does Raja Vidya, Raja Guhya Yoga indicate? And what we need to keep in mind is the fact that 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th chapters, these 6 chapters, are all in the broad category of Bhakti Yoga. And while 7th chapter gave us an inkling by Jnana Vijnana Yoga, 8th chapter told the need for constant bhakti throughout your life so that the last moments are also predictable and hopefully with your yogic ability under your control. Let's look at what chapter 9 has to say. So chapter 9 says that the Lord or Bhagavan, we should not say Lord in the sense that it is too anglicized to say Lord. I'm going to, of course, reading all the commentaries, one keeps saying Lord, but it's better to say Sri Krishna or Bhagavan Krishna, which is the right way in which the Sanskrit also is indicated. So in the first 3 shlokas, all that Bhagavan says is that Atma Vidya is very important, and that's one of the secrets. For example, I was reading in a book. Now, in modern terminology, if something is very difficult, we say it's rocket science. Now, in traditional Indian language, whether it is Hindi or whether it is Tamil or whether any Indian language, before the advent of modern terminology, if something was very difficult, it was spoken of as it is not Brahma Vidya. So Brahma Vidya or Atma Vidya was deemed to be the most difficult science, and we can look at the contrast in the way the difficult aspect is being verbalized. In modern times, rocket science seems to be difficult, but across all periods of time in the Hindu tradition, Atma Vidya is a Vidya which is difficult. And therefore, the first 3 shlokas of the 9th chapter are simply an indication from Bhagavan that he's going to be talking about Atma Vidya in this chapter, which is Raja Vidya and Raja Guhya. So rocket science, just to use modern terminology, is both difficult as well as it gives you obviously a lot of edge, because missile technology, rocket technology is ultimately space technology, and from there on we have a number of benefits that accrue in terms of power to nations. So that's the first 3 shlokas essentially. Then in the 9th chapter, the 4th, 5th, and 6th shloka basically indicate the fact that there is an unmanifest aspect of Bhagavan which is there throughout the universe. So the form of Bhagavan is not only in the form of the visible universe, but also the unmanifest aspect. So the phrase that is used in Sanskrit, while I think I've hit upon how to make this understood, I'll pick out some key phrases from shlokas 4 to 6 that will give us a taste of what it is. So Jagad Avyakta Murtina. So Jagat mein jo Avyakt Murti hai, Murti means something visible, but Avyakta Murti is like oxymoron, those 2 opposites put together. And therefore, that is the form of Bhagavan. So that is what is indicated in shlokas 4, 5, and 6. So in the 6th one, he broadly says that, so though, Bhagavan is there throughout the universe, yet what happens is like the wind which moves through space. So space does not get affected by wind. In the same way, Bhagavan does not get affected by the presence of objects. in him, within him, on him. These are all various ways in which we can understand. So that is a form of Bhagavan that has been indicated in row number 2. So we have understood broadly what the first two themes are in this chapter. Then from shloka 7 to 10, again, this is all esoteric knowledge, which is why it is called Raja Vidya and Raja Guhyam. So 7 to 10 broadly indicates that, yes, that there is something called Prakriti, which is the material part of the universe. And the material part of the universe is what is utilized as raw material by Bhagavan to create the universe and to maintain the universe. So maintenance of the universe means that there is some material aspect which is infused with Bhagavan, and it also ultimately dissolves. The pralay hota hai, it dissolves. So shlokas 7 to 10 are indicating how the universe originates and how the origin of the universe, the lifespan of the universe, and the destruction of the universe are all dependent upon Bhagavan, because the earlier theme has indicated that Bhagavan is there in the universe at every stage, at every particle level, at every being level. Particle level is at the lowest, and being is a human being. So that is what we have in shloka 7 to 10. Then we move into something which may be sounding to be logically not in sequence, because suddenly you have shlokas 11 to 15, which talk about who are the people who are of divine nature, who are demonical nature. Now you must be wondering why there is a theme like this. So the idea is that it is only someone with a divine nature who will be able to understand the Raja Vidya and Raja Guhyam, which has been indicated. The excellence has been indicated in theme 1, the form of Bhagavan and the origin of the universe. For you to accept that, you need to have a degree of Shraddha. You need to have a degree of faith, because if you suddenly say, unless you show me Bhagavan, I will not believe, then that kind of attitude is deemed to be demonical nature. And therefore 11 to 15 is simply a filter which is indicating to us who are the people who will understand this Raja Vidya and Raja Guhyam. Okay. Then in the next theme, which is the universal form of the Lord, 16 to 19, here we have an interesting set of shlokas, which, just to give you an example of what it is, Pitamahasya Jagato Mata Dhata Pitamaha, which is, I am the father of the world, Jagat ka main pita hu, main mata hu, main dhata hu, main pitamaha hu. So the universal form of the Lord. So in these shlokas, he indicates his presence in terminology which is not avyakta. Avyakta is unmanifest. He is showing us how he is manifest. So he says that I am the mother, father, I am the goal, I am the Lord, I am the Sakshi, and all such kind of stuff. So the universal form of the Lord, the fifth theme, which is from shloka 16 to 19, is talking about the form of Bhagavan, which is our theme 2, in a more tangible form. Okay. Now we come to the next theme, which is the rewards of Nishkama Karma and Sakama Karma. Again, if you would look at some kind of logical flow, you may find that the sixth theme seems to be out of place, because it does not seem to be. So in English, we call this non sequitur. Non sequitur means I'm talking about something in a logical sequence and suddenly something else gets plugged in. But in the Bhagavad Gita, nothing is really non sequitur, because there is a logic behind every aspect of the sequence of the shloka. So what does 20 to 25 indicate? It simply says that since Bhagavan is there everywhere, which is what we have understood from the universal form of Bhagavan, therefore, whatever you offer Bhagavan with, so the very famous shloka is Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam. I think we had done that earlier on, and probably Sunil ji was explaining that he had heard this shloka many times. So whoever offers me anything, because what is being offered is also a part of the universe. You're offering it to me, who am the universe, and therefore, that is the importance of the degree of devotion. And therefore, it also says the very famous shloka we have in theme number 6 is Yat karoshi yadashnasi yad juhoshi dadasi yat tapasyasi kaunte yat tat kurusha madarpanam, which is 9.27. Oh, I've come to that, is it? Sorry. I just jumped over to that. So Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam again. So I think I've jumped to the next theme. In shlokas in the theme of 6, sorry. So you're simply saying that whatever the yajnas you do, uske jo patra hain, uske jo bhokta hain, that is all the Lord. So whether it is निष्काम कर्म और सकाम कर्म, उसके जो फल देने वाले हैं, जो काम तो है आपके अंदर है, लेकिन कर्म फल के दाता जो है वो भगवान है. दैट इज द थीम. And then seventh theme, that is a theme, that's sixth theme, and seventh theme is ultimately about patram pushpam phalam toyam, and yat karoshi, aap jo bhi karo, whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer in sacrifice, whatever you give, please do it as an offering to me. So we have, therefore, there is a logic that has been built in, and let us look at the summary that, the insights from Professor R.S. Tiwari. So what does he say? He says that transcendental wisdom, practical wisdom of experiencing the divine and rational functioning of the world free us from sorrow. So this is his way of saying Raja Vidya, Raja Guhyam. Look at the world with equanimity, because all beings as well as nature are sustained by a single power. So this is the origin of the universe concept that he's summarizing. Further, he says, through cosmic time, the cycles of creation and dissolution go on incessantly, then why lament over the perishable? Okay. Then the eternal, the supreme, is an observer, Sakshi. We had used the term Sakshi somewhere in between, saying that he is a Sakshi. And therefore, Professor Tiwari is picking up on that. So there's an observer who's unaffected by the happenings and unattached to anything. So Ishwar jo hai wo Sakshi hai, और जो भी बदलते रहता है. So what is he witness of? He is witness of the manifold phenomena that happens in the Jagat. And the Jagat is Prakriti put on show. Point number 5 is symbolized powers could be the path to reach the goal, but they are not the goal themselves, which are about conceptualized things. So this is about the bhakti part of it. This is evolved from the theme of universal form of the Lord. So it says that ultimately you can pray to any deity, but the final reward giver, final karma phaladata is the Supreme Lord. Okay. Then to rediscover one's total identity with the self, one must glorify the Lord, strive hard, surrender, be stable. So this is all in the theme that we have in terms of surrendering to the Lord. Then further, Professor Tiwari says, banish dogmatic visuals, feeling high or low, egocentric arrogance in achievements of world pleasures. One must not look down upon low-placed beings, because the grace of Almighty illumines them also. The entire creation is interconnected and he is present everywhere, being the master of all. Don't compromise with small achievements and temporary happiness. Or else you will return again and again. Aim high and achieve it. Return again and again is you'll be reborn again and again if you do not fulfill the destiny of human birth. Then constant awareness, contemplation on the self, positive attitude, and righteous acts are the secrets of success. I'll just add one point here. I was reading a book just before we began the session. I don't know how many of you know, but there used to be a very famous professor of philosophy called R.D. Ranade. He was also called a guru because he was mystical. So he has given some advice. So he's written, books on the Gita, and his advice on how to read the Gita is what I found very useful. So I thought I'll just read that for you, because that is, I don't know where it. So he says that the way we must read is called meditative reading. Meditative reading is to totally get involved in what you are without any distraction. And that is how we should read the Bhagavad Gita. So meditative reading should be before the chanting, because in the chanting you are concentrating more on your vocal cords and the pronunciation and so on and so forth. So you may not be able to really grasp the meaning. So meaning is to be grasped through very silent, quiet reading. And he says, think before you read, think while reading, and think after you have read. So I found that advice. Of course, we would have done this when we have wanted to understand some of our engineering texts, but maybe we didn't do it with this kind of knowledge. So this is useful knowledge for anybody who wants to study a subject, because we are very distracted when we study anything. We are more worried about what we've not understood or what kind of question is asked rather than being involved in the topic itself. So I thought that I would just put that little thought for you. And finally, we will conclude, and then we'll have a little discussion around this before we go to the next chapter. So we make the path our goal, we suffer, we make the goal our path, we suffer, cross over both the path and the goal, only then will be unknowable. So in other words, we should not be caught up. We should really try to understand the Raja Vidya and Raja Guhyam and act from a higher plane. Because if you say that I'm ignorant, you will act like an ignorant. If you say that I'm a Jnani and tell yourself that you're a Jnani, then you're more likely to behave like one. So should I stop here and we have a discussion, or should I continue? Because each chapter has got its own points and we may forget the point that you would like to check. So I'm going to quickly stop here and just let me know whether there's anything that you would like to have a discussion on.
This Raj Vidya title itself is very dicey, is not understood. Raj Vidya, Raj Guhu.
Yeah, so now the interesting thing about the titles is that, you see, one does not know who gave the titles. because the titles, now I was reading about this because this is a constant source of perplexion, so to speak. So the conversation between Arjuna and Krishna is one continuous conversation. Then as the theme shifts, somebody said that, we can have a conversation up to this point and call it chapter 1. Up to this point and call it chapter 2. So they converge in 700 shlokas. So this Raja Vidya, Raja Guhyam is to be understood as, you see, further knowledge about the Lord. Okay, भगवान के बारे में क्या है, भगवान कहाँ है, भगवान, you see, the whole question that Hiranyakashipu asked Prahlad is, तुम्हारे विष्णु किधर हैं? So Prahlad said, हमारे विष्णु कहीं भी हैं. So he said, is he there inside this column? And then he hits the column, and of course, Narasimha comes out. So the idea is that this is knowledge which is secret, in the sense that when we say secret knowledge, known only to a few, कि भाई अगर आप भक्ति करेंगे तो भगवान जो है आपके साथ है. This is the underlying theme. तो उसको जो है राजगुह्य बोला है. And Raja Vidya is like Brahma Vidya, rocket science. This is rocket science, because if you don't understand this, so if you lead life without rocket science, Brahma Vidya, life is not complete. That is the point that is being made here. I don't know whether I gave a proper explanation, but this is what I
because Raj says it becomes something like political, or who is the ruler.
Yes, of course. In that sense, also there is an interpretation which says that all the Rajas and Maharajas were, Raja Rishis. So Raja Rishi, if you recall, in the 4th chapter, he says that he taught to, Vivaswan, Manave, Praha, Manu, Ikshva, Kaveri. It goes from the sun god to his son Ikshvaku to Manu, and Manu onwards to Raja Rishi. So in the olden days, this knowledge was important to be a ruler. So in that sense also, you can interpret this title. But then, as you would have realized by now, any interpretation is a valid interpretation because of the fluidity of the Sanskrit language. So we know by this time that there is no cast iron reason, as long as you are reasonably. So I think the sum and substance of all this, at least in my reading, is as long as you are a divine person, you can give any meaning. As long as you're not demonical, only demonical person will give negative meaning. So therefore, while we have been criticizing ISKCON sometimes for their interpretation, they are not bad people. They are all good people at heart. They may have an interpretation which may be irrational to us, but they are not bad people for sure. And therefore, their interpretation is as valid. It may not be palatable to you. But then, for example, I'll just give you an example. When we go to 11th chapter, I'll give you that example. So I'm going to stop now. So any thoughts from Sunilji?
Yeah, one point I want to just put.
Let Rajesh make his point.
बहुत जगह कहा गया है कि you offer your action to the Lord. Okay, that is right. तो उसका action point जो समझ में आता है, first, you need not worry about the results. And number two is कि you put your full devotion. As in one pyramid in one knowledge was your right tools, right knowledge. Because once we upgrade, then only we can move in the charted path. And with clarity, some ambiguity will be there, but we have to resolve it to the best extent. Any more points in offering him? कि यही दो action point, interpretation of offering to the Lord. ये पूछना चाह रहा था. That's
I think it is covered in some subsequent chapter.
Yeah, no. So I think Rajesh's question is that there is an element of karma
meaning
yoga.
Interpretation of offering to the Lord. That's the only one.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, see, what we have to remember is, who are you? You are also Amsha of the Lord. What is work? Work is also an Amsha of the Lord. Who is the recipient of work? The recipient of work is also an Amsha of the Lord. So, in sum and substance, what is happening is, this is the famous 24th shloka of the 4th chapter. Brahmarpanam Brahmahavir Brahmagno Brahmana Utam Brahmeva Tena Gantavyam Brahma Karma Samadhina. Jiska Angrezi hai, I think you've understood, from the whole sequence. So 4.25. See, Brahman is the offering, Brahman is the oblation, Brahman is who offers the oblation in the fire of Brahma. So सब कुछ जो है आत्मा ही है. हम जो है, we are all different forms of the Atma, and there is. So the whole question is, whom do you offer your work to? It is like saying, if I pour water into the ocean,
Okay, got it.
Where is the water in the ocean, and where is
full identity of the drop?
हाँ, तो पूरा जो है एक ही फ्लो करता है ना. हमने यहाँ पानी डाला, वो पानी के अंदर मिल गया. वो मिलने के बाद you cannot distinguish. So, but if you keep having mental reservations, then it is very difficult to have this feeling of oneness. So, इसको बोलते हैं एकात्म भाव. हम सब एक ही आत्मा के हैं और उसको एकात्म भाव बोलते हैं. और उसी को जागृत करने के लिए इतना काम करना पड़ता है. Because the day we are born, we are told आप अलग हो, आपका नाम राजेश है, आपका नाम राजशेखर है, आपके इतने नंबर आए, आप गोरे हैं, आप काले हैं, आप ऊंचे हैं. So we are given only differences, that the ekatma bhav. Now, why do we feel very happy when we see small babies? उनमें एकात्म भाव, because वो किसी को भी देख के स्माइल करेंगे ना. They will not smile only because of parents are there. They will smile at everybody, which is why in the Indian tradition, छोटे बच्चों को भगवान माना जाता है, क्योंकि उनमें एकात्म भाव होता है. लेकिन जैसे जैसे हम बड़े होते हैं, एकात्म भाव की छुट्टी कर देते हैं हम लोग. फिर उसके बाद भगवत गीता पढ़ के उस एकात्म भाव को फिर से जागृत करते हैं.
Right spirit behind reading Bhagavad Gita. Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Sunil ji.
राज, एक बड़ा बेसिक सवाल कोशिश कर रहा हूँ फिर से पूछने की. मुझे लगता है, मतलब जब कोई चीज खुद समझ में आती है और दूसरे को अगर एक्सप्लेन करने लग जाओ तो पता लगता है कि शायद कुछ समझ में आई है थोड़ी बहुत. मतलब नॉलेज अनलिमिटेड है, बट मतलब बीइंग ए टीचर मुझे ये लगता है कि जब खुद थोड़ा समझ में आएगा तभी दूसरे को समझा पाएंगे। तो हमेशा मुझे ये जो चैप्टर्स में, डिफरेंट चैप्टर्स में ये टोन सेट की जाती है कि भगवान ही कह रहे हैं कि मैं सबसे बड़ा हूं, मैं ही सब कुछ हूं, इस तरह की कुछ टोन लगती है विजिबली। मतलब ठीक है, उसके डीपर मीनिंग्स हैं। तो मतलब इस टोन से हम लगभग हर बार हार जाते हैं जब किसी को और को एक्सप्लेन करने की कोशिश करते हैं। वो सीधे ये कहता है कि आप में डर बैठाया जा रहा है, भगवान खुद ही कह रहे हैं मैं सबसे बड़ा हूं। तो इसी तरह का काम तो आजकल के जो जो सड़क छाप स्वामी होते हैं वो करते हैं कि मैं सबसे बड़ा हूं, मेरी पूजा करो, मेरा ये काम करो। तो इस बात को हम निकाल नहीं पाते हैं उस बात से, जब हम किसी को एक्सप्लेन करने की कोशिश करते हैं तो वहां पर फंस जा रहे हैं समझने में। तो हम कितना भी डीपर समझ जाए तो वो उससे कैसे बाहर निकले, ये रास्ता खोजने का प्रयास कर रहे हैं।
No, in fact, it is so uncanny that whatever I read just before the class, those very questions are asked in the class. So there is something very funny that is happening. Now, this is again, it is called, this is a book, this is called Dhyana Gita by Ranade. वही मैं Ranade बोल रहा था ना, तो उनके बुक का ये एक छोटा सा समरी है। तो यहाँ पे इन्होंने श्री कृष्ण कौन है उसके बारे में समझाया है। ओके, सो ही सेज, या तो ट्रेडिशनली यूं लिया जाता है कि श्री कृष्ण भगवान हैं और भगवान बोल रहे हैं। ओके, एक और जो तरीका उनको समझने का है, दैट he was a very, so he did tapasya in 3 places. He did tapasya in a forest called Gandhamana forest. He did tapasya in Pushkar Lake, and he did tapasya in Badri mountains. Badri जो है बद्री का आश्रम के आसपास में उन्होंने तपस्या की। तो हम उनको, we can think of him as a very highly spiritually realized human being, who after great spiritual realization said that there is a need for him to uplift mankind, and therefore he became a warrior and he became all that he did. This is one way of looking at it. And therefore, when he says that मैं सबसे बड़ा हूँ, मैं ये हूँ, he is not saying it as Bhagwan, as you know, the physical Sri Krishna. He is truly saying it as the infinite, intangible substratum, जो ब्रह्मन कहते हैं, जो एकदम बेसिस है। अब जो है मॉडर्न स्टूडेंट्स उस बेसिस को क्वेश्चन करेंगे। I mean, if you take it that an individual is speaking, correct? It is like President of India represents the Constitution of India, not what's his name, COVID जो है, he is only an individual, right? So COVID may be tall, short, maybe from this background, that background, maybe having effects. But when he is the sovereign representative of the Constitution of India, so in the same way, we can take Sri Krishna to be representative of the Constitution of the universe, and he's talking on behalf of the Constitution. So if you give this argument, I mean, it is very difficult for us. I mean, you know, this president and constitution argument will be understood by modern students. So he represents the sovereign democracy of India. That's what the president is. So
जैसे मैं भारत का राष्ट्रपति आपको अपॉइंट करता हूँ, ऐसा जैसे गवर्नमेंट जॉब में ऐसा लिखते हैं ना, तो वो एक्चुअली कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन की तरफ से अपॉइंटेड है। भारत का राष्ट्रपति अपॉइंट करता है तो उसने तो कोई इंटरव्यू लिया नहीं होता है कि राष्ट्रपति ने अपॉइंट किया है, तो वो संवैधानिक पोस्ट है, इसलिए ऐसा माना जा रहा है।
Correct. So that is the same thing of Sri Krishna, that he is, see, ISKCON takes it to be personally representative of God. See, that's the difference between ISKCON. ISKCON बोलता है तुम प्रेसिडेंट हो, तुम इंडिया हो, तुम सब कुछ तुम्हारे अंदर है. But you can also take a point of view that he is a very, very wise teacher, Jagat Guru, spiritually evolved, इसलिए उसको योगेश्वर बोलते हैं. और उन्होंने जो है ये उस मूड में कहा है. अब देखिए, दिस इज वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग. अनुगीता जो है, जब बाद में अर्जुन ने बोला था कि भाई मैं सब कुछ भूल गया, आप मुझे गीता फिर से पढ़ा दो, तो कृष्ण भी कहते हैं कि भाई उस समय मेरा मूड एकदम योगिक मूड था. सो दैट इज नॉट पॉसिबल फॉर भगवान. नो, जो भगवान है वो तो ही विल नॉट हैव योगिक मूड. सो दिस इज वन वे ऑफ इंडिकेटिंग. सी, देयर आर न्यूमरस आर्ग्यूमेंट्स. सर, ऐसे भी आर्ग्यू कर सकते हो, वैसे भी आर्ग्यू कर सकते हो. तो ये एक आर्ग्यूमेंट है कि श्री कृष्ण जो है हाईली एवॉल्व्ड ह्यूमन बीइंग थे. तो इसीलिए वो जब योगिक स्टेट में थे इन द महाभारत वॉर, ही spoke the Gita. But when subsequently requested after some 5-6 years when he was going back to Dwaraka, he could only give the Anugita. So this is my explanation, my response to your question.
I just wanted to say, in the classes which we were attending so far,
Yeah.
you had very rightly told us, Gita chapter-wise goes step by step. Initially, Krishna is a friend of Arjuna. He talks to him in a friendly way, but he articulates his knowledge to him in a friendly way. Slowly, he tells him the steps. First Bhakti, Gyan Yoga, then Bhakti Yoga, then meditation, and he slowly takes him to a next level of knowledge to understand Gita. And even then, he doesn't say he's God at that point of time also. When he realizes that now he has to reveal his identity to Arjuna, he shows him Vishwarup Darshan.
Correct.
At that stage, he understands the time has come to tell Arjuna my real state of matter. So that's how he has explained his presence as God.
Correct.
So that step-by-step information probably may help students also, maybe. I
Yes,
don't know
yes.
whether...
No, in fact, it so happens that I'm doing the 11th chapter for one of my batches. And the whole question that was asked by the batch was, you know, why should, I mean, is it logical to show the Rupam? Krishna, I mean, Arjuna asked, you know, "Aap mera Vishwarup dikhaiye." So is it logical? Was he equipped to actually ask the question? So of course, we will debate this when we come to 11th chapter. But it's a very logical question as to why the 11th chapter at all. And some of the critics of the Bhagavad Gita say that the 11th chapter is simply there to confuse people. It is black magic, witchcraft, and stuff like that. But then there are obviously very, very well-reasoned scholarly rebuttals of that. So you're very right. It's a very, very scaled progression. And actually, many people say that you can end the Bhagavad Gita after the 12th chapter. Okay, because all that has to be said has been said, and in fact, I have one particular commentary. I'll just tell you. So this is by a lady called Vimala Thakkar. Right? I don't know whether you ever heard of her. She is Vimala Thakkar. She she's been a yoga teacher, and she actually used to stay in Mount Abu. She was not a part of the Brahma Kumaris, but she was an independent teacher, and basically she has commented only on the 12 chapters because, as she puts it, in the 12th chapter, we have come to the essence of the Gita. From the 13th chapter onwards will be the metaphysical part, the theoretical part, and the philosophical part. But from the 2nd to the 12th chapter, we have scope to understand, learn, and get transmuted or transformed. So the logic is from chapter 1, or rather chapter 2 to chapter 12 is where the transformation happens. And chapter 13 to chapter 18 is basically giving the framework. So that's one way of looking at things. In fact, according to Maharshi Mahesh Yogi, he goes even lesser. He says that first 6 chapters are enough. Baki sab, because he's a Jnana Yogi, he has got enough in the first 6 chapters, and he says the remaining chapters are of no use. So different. So when you read these different commentaries, different points of view, you understand the text far better. It's very difficult to debate who is right and who is wrong, because each one will give an argument which is so very supportive of their point of view that unless you have a superior point of view, you cannot counter the logic. So I do what is called meditative reading. You know, what are these fellows saying? What is their logic? That itself is good enough for you to understand and get transformed, right? Because you are not, competing to have one more version of the Gita, but there are enough versions of the Gita. You're only competing to understand and completing the versions of the Gita. So this is my logic. Right? I've got enough books on the Gita. I must read, understand, internalize whatever is there. So if you have 2 versions of the Gita, internalize them is my advice. I don't know, Vikshu, whether I was able to answer your question.
Yeah.
Good.
Actually, Raj, just one more thing I want to tell you. I mean, what I've found about Gita is, I have got Swami Chinmayananda's translation, actually, which I was just telling you. My father used to read it on a regular basis. It's so nice, so well written. At least as far as I am concerned, with my little knowledge on Gita, I'm able to grasp a lot of things about Gita from his point of view. Probably you may say that there may be you should read other versions also, but
No. I'm simply saying we read whatever version we have and get transformed. That's all. We have to become more divine. But और कुछ नहीं करने का है.
Exactly. We want to uplift ourselves spiritually so that we understand the presence of God. Maybe whatever targets we have mentally to reach in life in terms of spiritual upliftment, if Gita can give you that, then why not?
It definitely can. And in case you ask me, if that is the case, if you're advising me to read only one version of the Gita, then why did you buy so many copies of the Gita? Is a very valid question that you can ask me. So I would say I was driven by curiosity, because while I have read Chinmaya's, I have attended his lectures, I was curious as to what is the other person going to say. If Chinmaya has said everything that has to be said, then is there something else the other person is going to say? It is sheerly out of that curiosity and more curiosity that led me to buying all these copies. And then I found that everybody has a very valid point of view. So my point of view, so let me tell you, I've also grown in a little bit of confidence in interpreting the Gita, because previously I was under the Chhatra Chaya of all these commentators. Now I understand a little more, so I can also give a little bit of my understanding. So that is what happens when you read. You internalize the commentary, essentially. You have to internalize the commentary. That's very important. Okay. So we have 15 minutes left. I don't think so. Today we've had a lot.
I think we must welcome Rakesh Verma also, because abhi wo join kiye hue hain. I think he is hearing us.
Rakesh, where are you? Yes, I think I don't know when you joined and what part of the discussion you heard. So can you unmute yourself so we can see you?
He is unmuted, I think, but only video is not coming.
Rather unmute your video.
No, he's not.
Okay. शायद अभी इधर-उधर चले गए कहीं. So
that's
you need to move to chapter 10 now.
Yeah, we'll do that. I will see how much of it I can cover. Probably not in that kind of detail, but we'll see. Whatever we do, we will do it share screen. Here we are. So what we did is, I think instead of 3 chapters to 2 chapters, now come down to only 1 chapter. But okay. I think Vibhuti Yoga would not be that difficult to cover, because let's look at this. So we come to the 10th chapter, where Arjuna makes a kind of request. So the request that Arjuna makes is in the first 7 shlokas. So the request that Arjuna makes is like this. So he says that it actually doesn't begin with Arjuna. It begins with the words of Sri Bhagavan. So Sri Bhagavan indicates that that there are a lot of powers that Bhagavan has, and the extent of these powers are not really known to the people whom we regard as very knowledgeable. So you have the Maharshis, you have the Devas, all of them also really do not know the full extent of the power of Bhagavan. And what he says is very interesting. He says that if you're able to truly understand the extent of the powers of Bhagavan, then what happens to you is, you become truly established in Bhagavan. माने आपका जो है भगवान के साथ एकत्व हो जाता है, समत्वम हो जाता है ना, you are able to relate to Bhagavan. So that is what he says in the first 7 shlokas, which is to indicate that the yogic powers of Bhagavan are not understood by everybody, and that if you understand them, then you become unshakable in your faith and confidence. So that is what he says. And that is further elaborated by the power and fruit of Bhakti Yoga. Sorry. So he says that if you, for example, the very famous shloka that we have here is the 9th one. Mat chitta mat gata prana bodhayanta parasparam kathayantascha mam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. So mat chitta means आपका चित्त जो है, mat, that is himself, Shri Bhagavan, it is directed to him. Mat gata prana. I mean, you are directing. Hello Rakesh, how are you? I think I can see Rakesh now, but anyway, let me continue. So all the attributes that are there of Bhagavan are understood by you, and obviously, you know, the universe is so vast that when you are in awe of the powers by which the universe has been created, that becomes a form of understanding Bhagavan. Because Bhagavan is not only behind the universe, he is also the universe. So what Arjuna then does is, and we have the bulk of the chapter based on that, he says that, look, can you please explain this magical power of yours, or this very manifest power of yours? And then in the last theme, you know, Bhagavan speaks of his glory. So what he does, he takes 75 categories of gods, creatures, nature, and then he says that in that category, I am best of the Lord. I am the superlative. For example, I will tell you. So these 75 categories are very interesting. He says, among sacrifices, I am Japa Yoga. Among the trees, I am the Ashwatha trees. I am the heavenly rishis, I am Narada. So heavenly rishi is a category. Okay, among the horses, I am Uchchaishavas. Uchchaishava is the name of the horse of Indra. So in this way, there are 75, you know, of all the weapons, I am the thunderbolt. Of all the hooded serpents, I am Ananta. Of all the purifiers, I am the wind. Of all the warriors, I am Bhagwan Ram. Of all the letters, I am Akshara A. So in this way, there are 75 categories which span various aspects of the universe and the world that you can see. And what is being told here is very clearly. In fact, I think what I'm going to do is I'll just see whether I can show that to you. I'll just do a stop share here, because that will help you visualize. 1 minute, let me just go to the presentation. I'm going to do that. I'm going to move to different groups. So this is the essence of Bhagavad Gita. And we have chapter 10. And, okay. So because if you see this overview, you'll get a very clear idea. So I'll go back to the share slide mode. Shared screen. And here we are. Okay. So what I have here is the presentation that we have. Okay, of 21 to 39. So this is how it goes. So 1 minute, this will help you understand. So it says, among the Adityas, I am Vishnu, among the luminaries, and so on. So this is a category, and then the particular manifestation. Among Maruts, I am Marichi, asterisms, I am Moon, Vedas, I am Samaveda, Devas, I am Vasava. Among the senses, I am the mind. Among the living beings, I am intelligence. Among Rudras, I am Shankara. Yakshas, I am Kubera. Vasus, I am Agni. Mountains, I am Meru. Then household priests, I am Brihaspati. Brihaspati is the priest of the gods. Okay. Among the generals and commanders, I am Skanda or Kumara. Among the water bodies, I am in the ocean. Maharshi, I am this. So you have 75 such categories, of which Bhagavan is the best of the lot. And that is what is being, so you can see 75 categories. Now you can also recategorize this And the categories are Kshatriya categories, Brahmana categories, feminine categories. So you can put things together. So I did this particular analysis based on Shripad Damodar Satwaleka's categorization of vibhutis. So this is based on shloka. What I have here in this chart is based on shlokas. And this is an artificial creation or a scholarly creation that if you were to recast the 75, then there are vibhutis which are Kshatriya, Brahmana, feminine, Devas, Pitra, Yaksha, Rakshasa, Gandharva, human beings, vibhuti, knowledge, and so on and so forth. And then, this is the way in which we can, I don't know whether I did this further. Let us look at, yeah. So just to give you, so Kshatriya vibhutis, Rama, Shasapata, Vrishni, Nam. Then we have Brahmana vibhutis, which are mentioned, right? So Deva Rishis and all that. Then we have, then I didn't complete this because 75 of them will take one hell of a long time and I didn't actually complete it, but I'll complete that because I have to also present to my group. But this will give you an idea of what chapter 10 is all about. So it is about the manifestations of Sri Bhagavan in various ways that you can see and tangibly experience. In other words, the feeling of unity with the world will be stronger when we understand how the world is a representation of the Lord or of the divine energy. So that's what we have here. I think we have about 10 minutes left. So I think I will, we did our 2 chapters today, but open up for discussion. So I think we will first, now I think Rakesh is connecting to the audio. So we can begin with anyone else, while Rakesh, comes. Yeah, Rakesh, are you able to hear me? Okay.
Audio is not connected, perhaps.
Yeah, probably.
ऐसा लगता है कि राकेश का ऑडियो अभी काम नहीं कर रहा है.
Correct.
Visual से चलेगा.
हाथ हिला दो.
Okay. Okay. So open to questions. So let's begin with Sunil Rastogi or Sunil ji, whoever is.
नहीं, मेरे को कोई क्वेश्चन नहीं है इसमें.
Yeah, actually this is an easy chapter, but of course, if you want to go into history of each category, it's a very long chapter. कौन है आदित्य, कौन है उसमें विष्णु, कौन है क्या है, that's a huge explanation of Indian mythology. But that's fine, perfectly fine.
मेरा अगेन इसमें थोड़ा सा एक वैसा सवाल है जो थोड़ा सा हिटिंग कर रहा है. जैसे अभी आपने कैटेगरीज बनाया, तो उसमें अब हम जैसे लोग कभी कभी इस तरह के आर्गुमेंट भी सोचते हैं कि भाई ब्राह्मण और क्षत्रियों में आपने बेस्ट बता दिया, वैश्य शूद्र में क्यों नहीं बताया. इस तरह की बात भी आती लगती है. तो मतलब ऑब्वियसली कोई भी चीज, मतलब उसके पीछे मतलब एक तरह का इस तरह का भी वो अगेन मैं इस पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से सोच रहा हूँ कि अगर किसी ऐसा आर्गुमेंट सामने आता है तो कैसे रिस्पॉन्ड करेंगे उसको. मैं इस तरह से सोच रहा हूँ उसको.
Absolutely. So the way in which, in fact, if you would look at the Bhagavad Gita, there is a sort of overwhelming emphasis only on Brahmana and Kshatriya. Vaishya is just mentioned in one line in the 18th chapter, and Shudra is also mentioned, very, very passingly. So we have to, so the way I explain this is that, look, the Gita is while it is on one hand a scripture of, divine importance, on the other hand, it is also something which is a human creation. So it is a reflection of the times in which it was created, because obviously, it is a human being who articulated it and a human being who put the rules of grammar and Sanskrit and so on and so forth. So it is reflective of its times. So there are certain aspects of it which are defensible, certain aspects of it which are to change with the times. So that is how I explain things, because I will tell you there are, so if you want to know the controversial shlokas of the Bhagavad Gita, I'll tell you right away. 4.13, okay, please look at 4.13 and you will find that anybody who wants to denigrate the Gita will be able to find a lot of masala there, okay. Then 9.32, 4.13 and 9.32 are 2 shlokas, which if you are a communist, you will take these 2 shlokas and say Bhagavad Gita is, perpetrating inequality and so on and so forth. So one has to understand the context, and ultimately, you see, people only quote where there are differences. People don't quote where there are similarities.
Similarity.
So the idea is to find fault rather than to see unity. So whenever there is this whole discussion of Brahmana, Kshatriya, and no Vaishya or Shudra, I say those are all divisions of society, but the true division of society is Devi Sampad and Asuri Sampad. This is the true division. Correct. That is based on profession, that is based on the work that you do, but based on the quality that you have within yourself, there are only two categories. या तो आप देवी संपद के हैं या आप आसुरी संपद के हैं. तो I mean just to pull Sunil ji's leg. I mean not Sunil.
मेरा तो देखो इसमें ये जो 4.13 मैं अभी देख रहा हूँ, जस्ट राजेश, ये तो डिवीजन एक्चुअली प्रोफेशनल डिवीजन है, प्रोफेशनल कैटेगराइजेशन है, उसमें कोई बाय बर्थ तो कैटेगराइजेशन की बात नहीं कर रहा. मुझे भी जितने इंडियन स्क्रिप्चर्स पढ़ रहा हूँ तो मुझे कहीं भी ऐसा लिखा नहीं मिल रहा है कि ये कैटेगराइजेशन बर्थ बेस्ड है. वो तो बाद में उसको बर्थ बेस्ड मान के कुछ लोगों ने एडवांटेज लेने की कोशिश किया है.
Absolutely.
तो ये गीता में बर्थ बेस्ड की तो कैटेगराइजेशन की बात करी ही नहीं गई है कभी भी. इट इज जस्ट प्रोफेशनल कैटेगराइजेशन. 4 तरह का आइडेंटिफिकेशन किया है. वो आप आज की डेट में आप 10 तरीके का कर लो, 50 तरीके का कर लो, क्या फर्क पड़ता है? How does it matter?
Absolutely. So basically, in terms of quality, there are only two categories. Either you are Sunil Rastogi or you are Saket Rastogi.
Saket Rastogi, that fellow.
अब अभी कल को आपको साकेत रस्तोगी भी साधु बना हुआ नजर आए तो कोई बात नहीं ना, फिर आप ये मतलब ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन तो किसी का भी हो सकता है.
कन्वर्जन तो सबके पॉसिबिलिटी है.
हम
लोग सब कन्वर्जन के लिए बैठे हुए हैं यार.
ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन हो सकता है सब.
बिल्कुल. So that's what we need to understand, and these divisions are all professional divisions, and therefore need not actually bother us in terms of the degree, how many words have been devoted to one profession. All this is actually diverting from the main meaning of the Gita. So that's what I normally say, is that theek hai, it has been mentioned the way. I mean, there is this output which is a product of its times, but never ever has it been said that it is birth based. It's always guna karma vibhagasha. गुण और कर्म, राइट? सो दैट्स व्हाट इट इज.
इसमें राज बस ये बात आती है कि जो सोशल आर्गुमेंट अब दिया जाता है वो ये है कि देखो हमारे स्क्रिप्चर्स में भी इनको इंपॉर्टेंस नहीं दिया गया, हम लोग तो सदियों से सताए गए हैं, तो दैट इज व्हाई अब हम लोग जो है ज्यादा राइट मांगने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, तो आप लोग परेशान करते हो हमें, और हमारे राइट ज्यादा होने चाहिए बिकॉज बाय नंबर हम ज्यादा हैं. तो वो सोशल आर्गुमेंट अब ये बना हुआ है और उसको पॉलिटिकली उसको हम लीवरेज करते हैं.
Correct, absolutely. So that is a difficult argument to counter in one sense, because there is so much of bad blood that has flowed and so much of bad ideas that have been pumped in, that if you say anything, they'll first ask, "Bhai, आपका origin क्या है? आप कौन है? आप कौन बोल रहे हो?" And then once they discover what is your social background, your argument is trashed. But purely on the basis of
राज, एक और इम्पोर्टेंट बात है उसमें, ये भी बात आती है कि मैं सेल्फ इंप्रूवमेंट जो आप गीता वीता में बात करते हो वो तो मैं बाद में करूं, पहले एग्जिस्टेंस तो कर पाऊं. अपनी बेसिक एग्जिस्टेंस ही मेरे को नहीं मिल पाती है तो मैं सेल्फ इंप्रूवमेंट की बात तो बाद में करूंगा. आप लोग मुझे एग्जिस्ट ही नहीं रहने देना चाहते हो.
Absolutely. So the whole issue lies in education. That's the only way in which you can handle this, because the more educated you are, the more opportunities you have. So at the end of the day, education is the way. So Vidya is very important, and that has been emphasized in the Gita also. So let enough Vidya be there for you to earn your bread. Then you can think of improvement, because as Vivekananda said, I think he used a phrase that there is no religion on an empty stomach. There is no spirituality on empty stomach. When your stomach is empty, food is important, and food is Bhagwan. So therefore, Annadanam is something that we can do. We who are fortunate, if you cannot actually go and do social service, whatever amount of money we have, we can donate it to, of course, any organization that serves food to people, because food is deemed to be God in the Taittiriya Upanishad. So it says, Annam na vidya, Annam na nindyat, tadvrutam. Aapka ek jo hai zindagi mein, because if you don't have food, you cannot think spirituality. That is just because body and food are interlinked. Of course, if you have excessive food, then also you will have no spirituality.
Right time to understand कि विद्या सम धर्म प्रधानम, rather than the wrong meaning कि विद्या के लिए आया हुआ धन सब प्रधान का है.
Right. So
विद्या
which is
is
why
the utmost. Investment in education is the मतलब कि expenditure in education is investment rather than expenditure itself. आपके books का देख के मुझे लगता है this is the investment. You will be upgrading yourself in the gradual process of time.
So there is a lady named Dr. Singh. I forget her first name. Sahana Singh. So Sahana Singh, just do a Google search. You'll find she has written a book on the educational institutions of India, which were wiped out after the First War of Independence in 1857. So in 1856, 1857, there was a fiat or a kind of firman that was released, not firman, I mean, was basically Government of India order, or rather East India Company order, because Government of Britain came in only after 1857, which wiped out 1 lakh pathshalas in Bihar and UP. There were 1 lakh pathshalas which were functioning, teaching all the scriptures and everything. 1 lakh pathshalas were closed down, which is why, in the initial, and that didn't happen in the South. So in the South, you were spared of that very, very tough action. Otherwise, we have to remember that the Indo-Gangetic belt is the source of the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Gita. It's all from, in fact, Meerut ke aaspaas mein to Hastinapur hai na. Indraprastha to Delhi hai. So that was the most cultured belt of India, and that cultured belt was totally decultured by, in fact, even till late 1857, the pathshalas were there. It's a tragedy of the highest order that these pathshalas were closed down, and subsequently, I think, the entire region went into a great collapse of education, and most of the arguments are from, and pathshalas were open to all, because they were supported by the kings. So that's the understanding that I have. So I don't know whether you have read something similar.
Yes.
और इतिहास जानना पड़ेगा, हम लोगों को पढ़ना पड़ेगा इसके लिए.
Yeah, Sahana Singh, Dr. Sahana Singh ka jo hai, she's researched, she went, so you must take a look at it. Then you will have a lot of pride in the educational institutions of UP and Bihar, where now when you say UP and Bihar, you have only a limited number of places where you have good education, and they've come up over the past 70 years, like Allahabad or Banaras. Of course, Banaras was always there, but you see, these are all centralized places. When you say 1 lakh pathshalas, it's decentralized, right? So Indians had the ability to decentralize education, और गांव-गांव में पाठशाला होता था. अब गांव-गांव में तो सिर्फ superstition है, पाठशाला नहीं है, unfortunately.
So we are the right aspirant for the Praud Shiksha. Praud Shiksha के हम लोग सब लोग participants हैं, आप शिक्षक हैं. We have grown up, but education is all along growing. मतलब it should.
Yes, yes.
You
So
feel
we need
कि
to
हम
have
लोग पढ़ लिया बहुत.
So we need to have Raja Vidya, Brahma Vidya. हमने जो है, we have learned what I would call as Prakritik Vidya, material sciences. लेकिन ब्रह्म विद्या हम सीखे भी नहीं, गीता भी सीखे नहीं, और वो सीखने से we are better off. So Rakesh is still having trouble, right? Rakesh, I wish you would be able
Audio
to
नहीं connect हो रहा.
Audio not yet able to connect.
Yeah, I wish he was able
Actually,
to.
he is the most high-tech man ना, तो हम लोगों के अभी उसकी टेक्नोलॉजी हम लोगों से थोड़ा ज्यादा है.
No, I think somewhere he's kind of finding it difficult. So we'll end the session here today,
Okay.
and we were able to complete 2 classes. So I must first of all apologize. I have not been able to go through Bishwarup's answers or anything. You've all submitted them so sincerely, but I've been so caught up in this. So I will do that, and I will, but before next week, I will give, it's not really feedback, but then I must at least indicate that as someone who gave you the assignment that I've gone through the assignment. So I will do that. And otherwise, your motivation to do the next assignment will be limited. Yes.
For this week, there is no assignment.
No, you can see assignment is a perpetual assignment. Whatever chapter is done, you have to.
Yeah.
राज, आई एज्यूम कि हम लोग जो है ना अपनी अंडरस्टैंडिंग को लिख देते हैं जैसे पहले में लिखा था, बिकॉज इनके तिवारी जी के वो एक्सप्लेनेशन स्ट्रोक का कनेक्शन इज ए डिफरेंट काइंड ऑफ थिंग, वो मैकेनिकल हो जा रहा है, तो हम अपनी अंडरस्टैंडिंग लिख देते हैं कि हमने क्या सीखा, क्या पसंद किया, ये सब.
Correct. So Tiwari's understanding is just a insight and inspiration for you to put your own understanding.
Yeah.
Where you can correlate, well and good. Where you find his logic is not acceptable, discard and put your own logic, right? At the end of the day, you have to write your insights into the Gita and not just correlate Tiwariji's insights into the Gita. Correct. So that's the whole idea. So it is just for us to get stimulated. Na? Kuch to masala hona chahiye for us to get started. So it is a starting point, but it is not the end point. The end point will be your understanding.
नेक्स्ट वीक तो ऑन शेड्यूल होगा फ्राइडे को.
Next week हाँ होना चाहिए ना, because I don't see
Next
any
week
reason why.
should not be any problem. Next week may be problem.
अब
Deepavali.
उस दिन दीपावली है, उसके अगले वीक में, तो उसके बाद एक ब्रेक लेकर फिर से कर लेंगे उसको.
Yeah. So
Ah.
I'm back in action because my room is ready, and once my
Chaliye.
room is ready, I have independence. Nobody will come into my room. I'll lock the door and I can.
चलिए, इस लिबर्टी के लिए आपको बधाई.
Thank you. यहाँ से भी ले सकता हूँ, वहाँ से भी ले सकता हूँ. I can pick up books. So I am very happy.
चारों तरफ से ले सकते हैं, ठीक.
आगे से ऊपर से नीचे से I can pick up any book. So I just need to reorganize in a way that I remember what book is where, so that in the course of our discussion, if I have to pull out any book and show the book to you, I can show it, right? So
विद्या से गिर गए हैं आप पूरी तरह, सही है.
sir, I mean, no. I will also tell you. I mean, just to give you an idea, ये जो मैंने नया, I mean, I'm still speaking from my old
दिखा
table.
दीजिए एक बार.
हाँ,
Yeah.
तो जो नया जो टेबल है उसमें स्ट्रिप लाइटिंग है, so it is
अच्छा.
all, it is now designed for me to deliver like this. So my idea is सब किताब आसपास होने चाहिए, एक जो है जूम होना चाहिए और जूम के उस तरफ बंदे होने चाहिए, बस. That is the best thing for me. ठीक है. So on that count,
Okay.
thank you so much for today's session.
नमस्कार.
And look forward to meeting you again next week. And in between, we will try to see what conversations we can have on WhatsApp. So thank you so much.
Sure.
All the best.
Thank you.